start the MatsuriBayashi hen arc thing. I feel kind of like really in pain. So, if I ever kind of like, so, cause I'm in pain right now. I'm in physical pain. So, if I have to like move around or something for a couple of bits, that's probably why. So give me a moment. I need to do some adjustments. God damn it. Hold on. Setup just became 5,000 times more harder. Okay. And I have to switch in my chair a lot. Because I'm in a lot of physical pain right now. So, okay. Like, I feel pain in my... I just feel pain right now, okay? And the way for me to adjust my physical pain right now is to move one way from side to side at times. I have to change where I position myself. So I'll try not to move too much unless there's like some little gaps of time or breaks. Sorry. Alright. Let's continue. Okay, I have to shift. Allow me to introduce you. This is Major Takano. Major, this is Dr. Irie Kyosuke. Irie. Hello, I'm Irie. Irie seemed extremely nervous at our first meeting. He probably thought I was in charge of some suspicious organization. Please relax. Call me Takano. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. Please have a seat. A model lower-class citizen was a good way to describe Kyosuke Irie's demeanor. One could also say he was the type of stereotypical person to get conveniently discarded after those crafty elders used their seniority to constantly pick on him. He certainly doesn't seem as cunning as I am. But that doesn't mean that he isn't ambitious. Like me, he's a young person who dreams of accomplishing something great and leaving his name upon generations to come. While he acts humble in a person like this, his articles were actually progressive as well as aggressive. The gap between the two was quite intense. I've read the data concerning the Misato syndrome. What did you think? Well, it really is quite the shock. It's very possible this is something that steps into the dark side of today's medicine, but I can hardly control my intellectual excitement knowing its mystery is yet to be solved. Hearing that made me chuckle. Irie is more interested in Misato syndrome, which is good enough for me. She had been through the ringer with far too many people to reach this day, so her own intuition could tell. She could get along well with this man. Even if he isn't useful to me, he won't cause any problems. For both me and my sponsor, he's the best person for the job. I was shocked too to imagine a man of your experience and knowledge was just wasting away in the medical office without any responsibilities or work to accomplish. I have to say that was a grave loss to the medical field. Irie laughed. You probably thought I didn't know, but I had received detailed documents on him, so I knew why he was exiled from the limelight despite his rare talent and achievements. He displayed an extraordinary skill working under a neurosurgery expert, and everyone expected a bright future from him, but he was kicked out due to an ethical controversy. Irie's pet theory was the antisocial behavior of individuals could be explained by brain disorders. He believed that no one in this world was born a villain, and that they were all just poor patients in need of treatment. He proposed that they were all proper and normal when born, yet as they matured, psychogenesis and various exogenous factors caused the brains exogenous factors caused the brain disorders that made them adults. Sorry, I messed up. I'm sorry. Therefore, what those evil people need isn't punishment, it is treatment. If their diseases are treated, they'll become good citizens again. That manner of thinking is actually well in line with the Confucian belief of innate human goodness. According to this theory, humans are born with the capacity for altruism toward their kind, and it is only afterward that they learn and acquire cruelty. Hey! And this is something that I also believe in. I think people are inherently good. Just maybe not to me, but they're good to others. Anyway, Irie believed that acquisition was a result of brain disorders. The human brain creates human thoughts, therefore if one becomes emotionally ill, that means their brain is ill. So if their brain gets treatment, they'll recover emotionally too. That field was called psychosurgery. It's fallen out of practice with the current Heisei era, but the surgical techniques were applauded until mid-Showa, especially since it produced spectacular results on a chronic mental patient that was said to be incurable. The man who invented it won a Nobel Prize. That was how revolutionary it was. Humans think, that's why they become ill. Everyone knows, that's why those who overthink matters are prone to mental illness. When the organ that thinks and debates grows ill, humans deviate from social behavior. That part is called the frontal lobe. Put simply, psychosurgery is surgery performed to cut the frontal lobe. This kind of surgery doesn't require removing the whole epicranium. A small hole is drilled through the cranium, and a special scalpel is inserted down to cut it. It's not a major surgery, it's just a technique for quickly cutting the precious frontal lobe. Indeed, it was revolutionary in its simplicity. All the severely ill mental patients miraculously recovered, so that the technique spread around the world quickly. Those with obstinate and chronic mental illnesses, the severely ill trapped in deep inescapable depression, all of those could be saved by this technique. Throughout history, humans have come up with many different religions and magic tricks to heal emotional injuries. So needless to say, the idea of being able to treat them with surgical technique was truly revolutionary. Irie admired psychosurgery and pushed forward in the field of surgical techniques to treat human souls. Hold on, I gotta switch it. However, from the modern human rights standpoint, severing a portion of the brain simply because someone is emotionally disturbed is absolutely out of the question. People gradually started to think differently and said that psychosurgery was inhumane. The frontal lobe controls how people think, but it is also the part that makes humans act human. There were quite a few cases where the cut caused drastic, irreversible changes in the patient. A baseless happiness born from lack of thought, a change in personality, a loss of interest in everything, major mood swings due to a lack of control over one's emotions. Some even lost parts of their memories. Of course, some didn't even survive the surgery. As the Showa era approached its 40th year, use of psychosurgery declined, also due to development of psychotropic medicine. The surgery was hardly performed anymore anyway. Yet some people still believed in the idea and continued to perform the surgery and gather clinical data. They wanted people to recognize the value of the technique once again. Some of these surgeries were performed without consent. One theory that is in Japan alone. There were thousands of people who woke up from general anesthesia only to find a part of their brain had been removed. Today, to perform such a surgery without people's consent is considered totally unethical, but it was different at the time. For one thing, the idea that doctors required prior patient consent was proliferated in the modern Heisei era. Therefore, people at the time didn't think that it was that big of an issue. It was only later that people started to argue that it was inhumane. Finally, a decision was reached, and the curtain closed with the rejection of psychosurgery. Later, the Japanese Society of Psychology and Neurology passed a resolution to end psychosurgery. After that, psychosurgery was banned throughout Japan and made a forbidden subject of Japanese medicine. Irie was the leading person in the field of psychosurgery. He continued to advocate its effectiveness and results. Therefore, he was treated as a war criminal who practiced inhumane medicine, and he was exiled from the public eye. However, that doesn't mean he changed his beliefs. He still believes that immoral behavior is caused by brain disorders, and the secret of treating them is in fact hidden in the brain. So the existence of Hinamizawa syndrome caused by parasites living in the brain that control human emotions actually affirms this theory. Give me a moment, I need to adjust again. If it's alright with you, I would love to accept this position. Of course, given Irie's history, he would never turn down this offer. Despite his mild-mannered appearance, Irie was possessed of mighty ambition. There was no way he didn't desire a chance to complete research that would prove himself to the medical society that ostracized him. I'm handing him that chance on a silver platter. Thank you very much. I knew you'd accept. We're very lucky to have an expert like you. You'll be a great help. But are you okay with me being the director? Wouldn't it be better for you to hold that position, Takano? I'm just a simple doctor. Being in charge of other people is... Don't worry. I'll give you my full support. Our sponsor wanted to pick a civilian. Besides, wouldn't you like me to call Director Irie? Well, but... Irie laughed to hide his embarrassment. We're building a research center in Hinamizawa. Publicly, it'll be called a clinic, so with your consent, Dr. Irie, we'd like to call it Irie Clinic. Lord of my own castle! That's more than I deserve. You'll also be placed under the SDF, so you'll be registered as a medical officer with them. Since you'll be my superior, you'll be a lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant Colonel Irie. How does that sound to you? I'm not a military man. I'd rather refrain from being called lieutenant colonel. Director's already a frightening title as is. Oh my. He's getting a chance to research brain parasites. Plus he's given the title director of a new clinic as camouflage. Plus it comes with staff and funding. He'll even have support from the Defense Agency and the Ministry of Health and Welfare, as well as a research lab with state-of-the-art equipment. No wonder why he's laughing so excitedly. However, there are some risks too. Since he'll be involved with this secret research, he has an obligation to keep it a secret. Also, he's going to be in an area plagued by a mysterious, bizarre disease. There's no guarantee he won't contract it himself. But Irie is too young to even think about those things. Aware of all the risks, he quickly signed the contract with the ambition to have people recognize his talent once again. When I saw him sign the contract, I finally relaxed. I knew he would agree to join us, but at the same time, I was afraid of the chance that he'd refuse. Selecting a director proved more than difficult than expected, and only the candidate Takano paired well with was Irie. So if Irie refused to take the position, then frankly, she'd be placed in an even worse situation. And now that Irie has been free to take the position, the research on Hinamizawa syndrome can finally begin. The research center, or rather the clinic, will be completed next spring. The Ministry of Health and Welfare and the Defense Agency will send the best equipment and staff, and plus an abundance of supply funds. And then finally, our research will begin in earnest. Everything is going well, of course it is. I've put so much effort into making sure things went smoothly up to this point. Okay, that's it. Congratulations, Director Irie. Major, the contract's been signed. Thank you. I look forward to working with you, Director Irie. Okay, I messed up. I'm sorry. I look forward to working with you too, Takano. I hope we can get along. I'll be devoting my best effort to this. No, thank you. Let's give it our best. And now the position of director has been filled. Everything has been set. That's great, just great. Congratulations, Takano. No, Major Takano, isn't it? This is all possible thanks to your assistance. I must give my thanks to all of you. Oh, don't mention it. But we should save our congratulations till after you finish your research, huh? You're only at the starting line, aren't you? Exactly. I'll be devoting my every waking moment to this research. We can hardly wait to see the result of what Dr. Takano couldn't finish. Well now, let's not talk about business today. Let's have a toast to congratulate Takano and the Irie Institute. Hello everyone, I'm Nagata from the Ministry of Health and Welfare. I'd like to say a few things before the toast. Takano, make sure he works hard, okay? His research center will be supporting the institute. If you need any technical support, just call him. Make him work real hard. No. I have to thank you for your support. I'm Takano. Pleased to meet you. Takano, let me introduce you to these gentlemen. Meet Tomitake and Okinogi from the Self-Defense Force. They're your backup from the SCF. I'll let them introduce themselves. Nice to meet you. I'm Tomitake. I've been commanded to serve as the auditor of this project. I look forward to working with you. The funding for our research is largely coming from the SDF. It's only natural for the SDF to assign a watchdog to make sure reasonable research is taking place. However, someone in a position like that could be my opponent. Why was someone invited in that position to this private party? Does it mean this auditor is on my side too? Seeing that thorough groundwork, I couldn't help but feel the strength of having a sponsor all over again. I won't be staying in Hinamizawa. I'll only come by routinely to check on the progress of the research. Oh, that's too bad. Hinamizawa is a beautiful place with clean air. Please come visit us anytime. Outside of work, too. Thank you. I guess I will. If he really is an auditor, I should maintain a good relationship with this man. He'll hold the key to all the future adjustments of funding, so as long as we continue drawing it from the SDF. I'm Okanogi. Nice to meet you. He's the commanding officer of the Mountain Dogs, one of our unconventional warfare units. They'll be stationed in Hinamizawa to provide you with direct support, Major. Should I consider you my bodyguard, then? The principal's duty is guarding VIPs and preserving secrets. Think of them as your hands and feet, and work them hard. Thank you. Tomitake seems to be the honest type for a military man, but this Okanogi person looks the complete opposite. His main job is to preserve secrets, but I bet he's also good with espionage tactics like counterintelligence and information control. Yes, that would explain his demeanor. Since the SDF is funding our research on Hinamizawa syndrome, of course it's considered a military operation. Therefore, this research has to be done in secret. That's why a unit like this is necessary. Besides, it's very reassuring to have someone capable of combat working under me. I should maintain a good relationship with him, too. Okay, enough introductions. Come on, Tomitake, you can relax, too. Let's put our sire ranks today and have a toast. While this is supposed to celebrate the establishment of the Irie Institute, Irie himself isn't here. But that is his job after all. Irie is simply a puppet to fill a seat. Of course, I expect him to help me a little with his expertise, but he's ultimately an outsider. This is supposed to be a gathering where I would show my appreciation to those who helped me establish the Irie Institute, but it's turned to them thanking me for all my efforts. I'm always the one to pour alcohol for others, but today people are pouring alcohol in my glass. The new participants were trying to make me happy, and all the top people talk to me casually. They all praise my hard work and my efforts. My research is now recognized by many institutions, and I'm ready to spread my wings open wide. And all the people who are expecting some returns once the research accomplishes something are trying to curry favor with me. But right now I'm just very grateful, regardless of their motives. Let's have a toast to wish the best of luck to Takano Mio and also the new Irie Institute. Alright? Please lay the toast. It's like a dream. I know. This is just the beginning. I shouldn't be satisfied with this alone. But just for today, I can forget about everything else and enjoy the celebration. I'm not a heavy drinker, but the drinks taste good tonight, and the more I drink, the happier I get. This is really wonderful. To be called Major by Tomitake and the others is wonderful too. That's the rank my grandfather had during the war. It means I finally caught up with my grandfather. This is only the beginning. From here on, I decide to reach what my grandfather couldn't. This is the best night of my life. Alright, let's twist this around. I ended up leaving to fix my makeup. I'm filled with elation. I need to feel the fresh air to calm myself down. My heart is about to explode because I'm so happy. The gathering is taking place a little distance away from the main building. The restroom is the main building, so I need to walk across the hallway. A beautiful and well-maintained Japanese garden is visible in the hallway. It's raining. I usually don't like the rain, but I don't mind at all today. It feels like even the raindrops are congratulating me. The cool air feels pleasant on my hot skin. I messed up, I'm sorry. It took me a moment to notice how unsteady my footsteps had become. Maybe I drank a little too much. It isn't like me to drink more than I can handle. Although this is a party, I don't want to embarrass myself. So I decided to cool off a little by looking at the beautiful Japanese garden. I found an elegant chair set on the red carpet nearby and sat down on it. Since I was with the associates until now, I was forced to constantly be on guard against embarrassing myself. But now that I was alone, I could truly let go and relax. When I look up to the sky, I realize it's still raining hard, but in the distance the horizon is a little lighter. Maybe it won't be raining for much longer. Well, that's normal. Rain stops eventually. no matter how cold it is or how hard it's raining. Rain stops eventually. I saw a pair of sandals and an umbrella, almost inviting me, so I took them into the garden. The tasteless laughter coming from the party sounds far away. I tilted the umbrella and looked up to the sky. I felt the raindrops hit my face. I gazed up at the sky for a while, forgetting all about my hair getting wet.
I thought the rain would cool down my boiling heart, but as my body got cold, I started to feel miserable. My bare feet were all swollen, and the throbbing pain I felt made them feel like twice their normal size. The gravel road continued forever. I didn't even know what direction I was headed in anymore. I could no longer hear my pursuer. I'd probably lost him by running through the woods like mad. My body was covered in scratches. I finally started to feel the pain from that. I felt both cold and hungry. There was no place nearby to take shelter from the rain. I was just on a little path in the woods. My worst fear was that I could end up heading back toward the orphanage after bolting and losing my sense of direction. I crushed that man's finger. I didn't think I bit it off, but I was sure it would leave a scar. Taking that into consideration, it was very clear to me what kind of torture awaited me back at the orphanage. Therefore, I had to reach the House of Love and Mercy. If only it had been daytime, then I could easily have found the right way to go. However, with this rain, there was nothing I could do. But I couldn't stop. I had to keep walking until I reached something. I wonder if Eriko and the others had escaped safely. I didn't know how many people came after us, but at least one came after me. In other words, it meant they had a better chance. Did they reach the House of Love and Mercy? Were they drying themselves with soft towels? If they still remembered me, would they save a towel for me too? I felt so cold. I wanted to find shelter and sit down, but there was nothing of the sort. I saw a tree that looked like I could take shelter under it, but the branches and leaves were dripping with water. It was then I realized that the sky was gradually getting darker. Would this day end in rain? There were no streetlights where I was. Soon enough it would be totally dark, and I wouldn't be able to walk any further. I just wanted to sit down, even if it was raining, but if I did sit down, I probably wouldn't be able to stand up again, so I endured. If I hadn't escaped with Eriko and the others, I wouldn't have had to go through such misery. But compared to what I had to go through at the orphanage, this was nothing. Thinking about that was my only way to make myself move. But when I thought about that, it's true that this freezing cold rain was far better than my life at the orphanage. But that was only when compared to the life at the orphanage. Was it better at the normal lives of normal kids my age? I didn't even need to think about that. When my parents were alive, although we weren't rich, we led a normal life. The gentle smiles and unforgivable selfishness and the sound of my mother cooking breakfast in the morning. The sound of a newspaper being folded. Precious memories like that. I didn't need anything else. I had plenty of friends and I had fun at school. I didn't like my teacher, but I liked studying. I had everything I needed. That was enough for me. I never complained. I never did anything bad. So why was this happening to me? Everything went downhill after that train accident. The die of fate kept rolling a 1. The die never showed its good side to me. If the accident was my fault, then I could have accepted it, but it wasn't. I wasn't even there. I waited for my parents at home. I liked going to the mall with them. We always had a meal in the restaurant at the mall. I always told them to let me know if we were going to the mall. On that day, they went without me while I went to my friend's house to play. My friend wasn't in, so I went back home. I didn't even see anyone at home and found a note that said they were going to the mall. I regretted going to my friend's house and waited at home. They didn't come home. They were still gone by dinner time. I was getting hungry and got angry with my parents for leaving me. I thought they were having dinner at the mall restaurant without me. If I hadn't gone to my friend's house, I'd be eating dinner at the restaurant too. I loved the little flags that came with the kids' meals. I was collecting those flags. Yes, I was. I was trying to collect 20 of them, thinking that once I collected 20, something wonderful would happen. But I couldn't collect 20 of them. I only needed one more. If I had one more, maybe the accident wouldn't have happened. A very sad memory of a flag from a kid's meal. I kept waiting for my parents to come home from the mall. I was hungry, so I started to eat some dried fish. If I ate too much, my mother would find out, so I was careful not to gorge myself. And then the phone rang. I assumed it was from my parents, and I answered the phone in a very angry manner. But it wasn't them at all. What happened to the house? We rented it, so maybe somebody else had already moved in. What happened to my room? What about my desk and all the flags that were in the right middle drawer? If it wasn't my house anymore, then where was I supposed to go? Even if it remained my house, my parents wouldn't be there to welcome me or protect me. Just because I didn't have my parents to protect me, the whole world became so cruel. How could anyone take me away from the house I used to live in just because my parents were gone? Why didn't they just leave me alone? They asked me many things and they tried to confirm many things. But how could I have understood any of the forms that they gave me? I was asked a yes or no question and I had no choice but to answer yes. And before I knew it, I ended up at the orphanage. It was beyond heartless. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just a little girl. I had to sign so many papers, but why this? The warm, gentle world ended suddenly without advance notice, and I was thrown into a cruel, merciless world alone. Was this the real world? Did I have any allies at all? Just because my parents died and I didn't have any relatives, the world became so sad. Once I died, going to come up with a 6 instead of a 1 to make up for the continuous series of the latter. Tears were pouring down my cheeks. The salty taste further saddened and irritated me. I couldn't do anything but cry. But no matter how hard I cried or pitied myself, the cold rain wouldn't warm my body or save me. I didn't even know where I was or in what direction I should go. Eriko showed me the map to the House of Love and Mercy when we were planning our escape, but we only learned the shortest route. I was completely lost. But strangely, after I finished crying, I felt a groundless strength within myself. I once learned that tears wash away particles in the eyes, but there's a different purpose to them too. Tears also wash away what's in the heart. I clenched my fists and forced my feet to move, heading in the direction I believed to be the correct road on the gravel. And the rain was still pouring. It was getting darker and darker. I roared at the sky amidst the rain. My sadness was turning into anger. You stupid God! Why? What have I done to deserve this? What did I do? I didn't do anything! I was just living a normal life! That's all! So why this? My daddy told me there are good things and bad things in life, but none of it lasts for long. That means this misery won't last that long either, right? I won't be alone in this miserable place forever, right? Isn't that right? As I looked up, I felt the raindrops hit my face. There is no God. I knew that in my heart. But such disbelief wouldn't save me. If I believed he was there, I should have been saved. No, I needed him to be there. Was he going to answer me? I heard thunder. And then I realized he was there. He was there and he was listening to me. In his eyes, everyone was supposed to be equal, and he was listening to me. I've gone through enough! More than enough! If I was too happy before, then I could take this misery. But I wasn't! I was living a normal life. If you asked me if I was happy, then sure I was. But this is what I get in return? That's not fair at all! I heard thunder again. He was listening. I continued. If this fate of mine was your mistake, then let me be free! Let's end my misery and let me be happy again! But if this is in fact my fate, and I'm supposed to live this way until the end, then I don't want it! Kill me! Kill me now with your lightning! Just finish me off now! Come on! Kill them ruthlessly right here, right now! I heard the thunder again. It was loud enough to make me shiver. Normally, I'd just hide in the house and wait until the thunder went away. But on that day, I wasn't afraid. Come on! Kill me! Miyako Tanashi's right here! Just like you killed my parents! Take my life too! The heavens replied to my provocation. The heavens took aim at me, a lowly human who dared sling constant, insolent insults at them. That was my wish. I opened my arms. He's God, so he wouldn't miss me. However, I guess even God makes mistakes sometimes. Although he's supposed to be fair, he had been unfair with me. Come on, kill me! Take me to heaven! But if you fail to kill me, then try turning my destiny around! A flash from heaven. I thought I smelled something burning just before it hit. The sheer force knocked me to the ground. It was a strange experience. It was something that had just happened, but it already felt like it happened many years ago. I had no idea how long I was down for. I smelled something odd. The bad stench woke me up. When I looked, I saw that huge tree behind me had been split open and its leaves were smoldering. I looked up and saw sparks in the darkness. I couldn't understand what had just happened. I just stood there. The thunderbolt had struck. It didn't strike me. It struck the tree behind me. I didn't get to die. He was telling me to keep walking in the woods in the cold rain. I won my bet with God. I bet my life. I bet my life against the lightning and thunder. He could have killed me instantly, but he missed. So he had to fix my life. I looked up the sky laughing and bragging that I was still alive. I heard the thunder again, and it was acknowledging its loss. Come on, God. Save me. I won the bet, so save me from this misery. I stood there. I waited for God to do something while the rain poured down on me. But he didn't answer me again. I couldn't hear the thunder anymore. Again, I felt the warm tears pour down my cheeks. What was I thinking? If there was a God in heaven, he wouldn't have let anything like this happen to me. My miserable life was just proof of God's non-existence. The darkness was about to swallow me utterly. Would I have to sleep out there? God must have wanted me to die slowly in this cold rain instead of granting me instant death by lightning. I wish the sun would go away. I wish the sun would never rise. I wish that as the woods had grown completely dark, my existence would be hidden by that darkness. I wish I could just disappear. It had been an eternity, or was it a matter of seconds? I couldn't even tell time in such darkness. But it was then that I saw something. It was a light. I noticed it, only because the woods were so dark. But was it really there? Had it been there this whole time? I felt like the light was inviting me toward it. It was a fluorescent light. I didn't normally like fluorescent lights because I always thought they looked cold. But I didn't feel coldness from that white light. I made myself believe that the light was the guide sent by God. I had to believe, otherwise I wouldn't be saved. The light reflected in a puddle. It wasn't a muddy puddle. It was a puddle on asphalt. I made it out of the woods and was paved on the road. The light was a street light. Being paved on the road didn't really resolve anything. It was just a country road. It was a road that went through the woods, so there was no houses, no shops, and not even a single car going by. There weren't too many streetlights on the road, so it was still very dark. My feet touched the asphalt. It felt so very different from the gravel I had been walking on earlier. It felt almost merciful. My feet had grown used to walking on gravel, but after feeling the softness of asphalt, I never wanted to go back to the former again. I could only choose between heading left or heading right. I was grateful to God for leading me to this asphalt road, but I wish he had given me a little more guidance. Such a little bit of luck couldn't make up for all the unhappiness I'd gone through. And that was when I sensed his guidance. I saw another light in the distance. It was only on the right side. I headed towards it, and when I got there, I understood what it was. I was amazed to find it there. A telephone booth. Who would actually make a call in the middle of nowhere? A telephone booth in the countryside was rather unusual. There are plenty of red public phones all over, but I had thought telephone booths only existed in big cities. It looked almost as though the telephone booth had been put there as punishment for doing something bad. And when I thought that, I felt bad for the lonely telephone booth. It reminded me of myself. Even if I went inside the telephone booth, what would I even do in there anyway? I already knew the answer to that question, but no matter what, I just had to get in there. The door squeaked as I opened it, and there were lots of bugs flittering around because of the light. I usually hated bugs, but in the moment I felt like they were my friends sheltering from the rain like me. There was no heater, but it was still very warm inside of the booth. It sheltered me from the cold rain. Soon enough, I crumpled to the floor. The warmth from the fluorescent light embraced me gently. It felt like it was telling me that it was okay to cry, but I had no tears left because I cried when all the lightning struck. Aching scratches covered my body. My cows were in pain too. Everything hurt everywhere, and I didn't want to get up ever again. I wish I could fall asleep, but if I did that, the staff from the orphanage might find me. The windows on the booth were high up. If I sat down, I wouldn't be visible from the outside. But as it was only shelter from these dark woods, the staff would be sure to check it. That was why I couldn't stay there for long. Telephone booths from back then weren't completely made of glass, so it was possible to hide inside one. My exhausted spirit understood that I had to move, but I just couldn't make myself. Maybe I was experiencing some kind of vision. I felt a strange calmness that I'd never experienced before. I didn't feel that I was myself. It was very strange. I thought that maybe I was killed by that lightning. I'd assumed that maybe I was still Tanashi Miyoko, but maybe I wasn't her at all. I seriously considered those things. Then I started to think that the telephone booth had something to do with it, because God had led me there. He couldn't have done something just because it was providing shelter from the rain. There had to be something else. I wonder what it was. Could there be something in the booth that could save me? But what? A telephone booth is supposed to make a phone call, but I didn't have any money. But then, I noticed something that looked like copper. My heart skipped a beat. The 10-yen coin I saw wasn't there before. Did I just miss it? I didn't think so. It must have just shown up. In other words, this 10-yen coin was guidance from God. He was telling me to make a call with that coin. But who? There was no telephone book. In that case, I could only call a number I knew. Did God want me to do that then? There was only one coin. I could only call one number, and I couldn't talk for that long. I challenged God earlier. It was just a matter of course to think that God was challenging me in return. If I only had one chance, He wanted to test my luck with that chance. I left the phone book and looked up at the sky, and I yelled in my heart, "You're on, God!" I wonder who I would call. Who? My house? My parents were dead and I had no relatives. Even if I called, nobody would answer. Actually, the phone bill wouldn't have been paid for a long time, so the phone line would already be disconnected. My house was a lost life itself. No, the debris of my life. Calling home would simply be an expression of regret, which ran counter to the positive attitude of one trying to change their life. So surely using the coin to call my house was wrong, which meant I had to cast this 10-yen coin toward my future. Future? My future? What future anyway? Then I heard a huge thunderclap, which cleared my mind. In that clear state of mind, I saw something from the past. It was the last sight of my father, his final moments on the hospital bed. Though suffering from pain, he tried to tell me something very important. If by chance I am to die, turn to Dr. Takano. Dr. Hifumi Takano. Say it for me. Hifumi Takano. That's right. Dr. Takano Hifumi. He's my former teacher. He will help you. Many doctors came into the room in a hurry. He wanted to tell me something else, but the doctor stopped him from talking so it wasn't audible. It shouldn't have been, but it was to me. I heard it, but I didn't want to hear him say it while suffering, so I pretended that I didn't hear. He said it while coughing. I heard it. They were numbers. I swallowed once. That's right, it was a phone number. He knew nobody would take me in because we had no relatives. He told me to get in touch with him, Dr. Takano Hifumi. He tried to tell me his phone number. What have I done? He tried so hard, using his last chance to tell me the most important thing. The thunder from earlier had made me remember it. The number I couldn't remember even once came out so smoothly. I dialed it in. This really was it. This is a number for my father's teacher, Dr. Takano. My hand stopped just as I tried to put the coin in. What if I hadn't remembered it correctly? No, there was no need to hesitate. I had to believe in myself. This had to be the correct number. I had to dial it before I forgot again. I picked up the phone and put the coin in. I heard the dial tone on the other end. At that point, I decided to kill myself if it didn't work. I could go back into the woods and wait for another lightning bolt. I could lie down and let the rainwater drown me too. I could also fall asleep in the middle of the road and wait for a car to run me over. I made up my mind and put the coin in. I didn't hesitate any longer. I dialed the number at once, but I had to be careful. If you dial quickly, sometimes you can make mistakes. I was getting irritated that almost made the phone number go vague in my head. I dialed the last digit and heard some electronic sounds on the other end. I hoped that I dialed the correct number. I didn't know what to say to Dr. Takano if it did connect. Where was I? What was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to ask him? I didn't know any of those things. Making a call isn't cheap. 1 10-yen coin could only buy me short time to talk. A line must have connected then. I heard a ringtone. I only had a short time since someone answered the phone. I thought for a moment I should put the phone down and then I could at least get the coin back. I could call after sorting out my thoughts, but then someone answered. Hello, this is the Takano residence. I felt like I was suffocating. My memory had been correct. I couldn't tell the age of the speaker, but it was a grown man's voice. Anyone who was my father's teacher must have been quite old. Never mind that. I had to hurry and say something. Hurry, hurry. Are you Dr. Takano? Dr. Takano Hifumi?
Yes? Who is this?
He must have been suspicious. I couldn't blame him. A stranger was asking about his name. Of course he'd get suspicious. I'm sorry. I'm Tanashi Miyoko.
Tanashi? Yes.
My father told me to get in touch with you. His name is Tanashi Takemitsu.
Tanashi. Ah, Tanashi! I remember him!
His voice suddenly changed. Dr. Takano had remembered his old student. I'm his daughter! He told me to call you.
Did something happen to Tanashi?
Not good. I was going to run out of time. My parents died in a train accident. I was told to call you.
Tanashi's dead? I see. Both of them. I'm sorry to hear that. I knew him from when I was teaching at a college. He was a very hard-working young man. I think it was the last time I saw him at the wedding.
Obviously, he didn't know I was born, but he remembered my father. That was truly a stroke of luck.
And what did Tanashi want to tell me?
Well, I didn't know what to say. I was only told to call Dr. Takano. How could I tell him that? My time was running out. I felt more and more anxious by the minute. Phone calls are disconnected without notice, but somehow I sensed it. I only had enough time for one sentence. I decided to say one sentence filled with all my hopes. Help me! The phone call got disconnected. Maybe he only heard part of what I said. I could only hope he was able to sense my despair. I couldn't hear anything from the receiver anymore. But I actually talked to Dr. Takano. I confirmed that Dr. Takano existed. He existed and he remembered my father. If he grieved over his student's death, he'd come to my house. He'd find out I was sent to an orphanage and he'd come get me. That's when tears flowed down my cheeks again. I thought that my life was hopeless. I never knew that finding even a grain of hope could make me feel so happy and strong. The voice I heard on the phone was so warm and dependable. My father must have thought about me for a long time in that hospital bed and came up with a name he could trust his daughter with. Dr. Takano Hifumi. So I could trust Dr. Takano. I had to believe he would find me, but it might take more than just a few days. I'd have to wait patiently. A few days. A month? More? I can only wait patiently. Either way, I couldn't stay in the telephone box. The staff would easily find me here. I went out into the rain again, but this time the rain felt a little warmer than before. I had wished to die by lightning, but after that phone call, I was filled with hope and the will to live. I wanted to live, and that's why I felt pain all over my body. When I still wished to die, I didn't feel anything. I had to wait patiently until Dr. Takano came to pick me up. I had to get to the House of Love and Mercy. That would be the best place to wait for him. I didn't think the orphanage would tell him I had escaped to the House of Love and Mercy, but the house wouldn't stop me from calling him. All I had to do was call him again and let him know where I was. But I didn't know where I could find the House of Love and Mercy. I couldn't see any signs anywhere, and I didn't even know the direction that the orphanage I was escaped from was in. I couldn't just stop. I had to walk. I had to find shelter. I had to find someone and ask for directions to the House of Love and Mercy. I had to keep going because I finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel. The chills and throbbing pain tormented me, but I couldn't die until I find Takano. I messed up. I wish the car would come by. If it was someone who lived in this area, I could ask, but the police wouldn't do me any good. I was sure the orphanage had already called the police about our escape, and they wouldn't be forgiving. The police were sure to send me back to the orphanage. Either way, I wish that someone would show up. Otherwise, I'd have to keep walking on the asphalt in the darkness forever. How long did I walk? Still no car. Just as I couldn't help but think that maybe the world perished, leaving only me behind. A car showed up. I sensed the car coming up behind me, so I turned around. I saw their headlights approach me. I thought for a moment. Should I stand in the middle of the street to stop the car? It was so dark. I didn't think the car would notice if I just waved at it, but if I were to stand in the middle of the street, I could get run over. Well, I thought the car was getting closer and closer. When I made the phone call, I panicked and didn't know what to say. So with this car, I had to think very carefully. If I couldn't think of anything, I could just let the car go. With those thoughts vaguely on my mind, I was incredibly surprised when the car slammed the brakes with a screech and came to a stop. Maybe I wasn't all there after the miraculous experience of the lightning striking near me. I had lost half my mind in those dark woods. I probably wasn't thinking very straight because the car had stopped after recognizing me. In other words, the driver knew who I was, and the only people in the area who could recognize me were... Suddenly a chill ran through my whole body. I started to dash away and I heard a voice calling after me. I no longer had the strength to run and my feet were trembling and I couldn't make them cooperate. I realized I shouldn't have sat down in the telephone booth, and that's why I couldn't keep running. I was suddenly grabbed from behind, the collar of my clothes almost choking me. I heard fabric being ripped. I fell in the puddle and the staff member got on top of me. This time his finger wasn't in my mouth. All I could do was struggle. As I did so, I remembered all the scary stories Eriko and the others told me. All the tortures the child who was caught had to endure. The drowned duck punishment, the squished caterpillar punishment, and the splayed piggy punishment. The names of those eerie-sounding punishments came to my mind. I screamed and struggled with all my might, but it was too late. I was shoved into the back seat of the car. Why couldn't they just let me go? Simple. They didn't want me talking about them to anybody. The staff were yelling and screaming while chasing me, but once we were in the car, they went silent. It was like the Grim Reaper had come to get me. Whether I liked it or not, I'd come to terms with the fact that my luck had ran out. But, I called Takano, so I knew he had come to get me, but I didn't know when that would be. But I knew it would happen someday, so I wanted to live. I would be saved if I lived. I couldn't even imagine the kind of punishment that was waiting for me. But even so, I said to myself, I have to live. I already found the light at the end of the tunnel. All I had to do was endure until I reached it. Sorry, this chair is super squeaky. The car had stopped and we arrived at the front gate of the orphanage. The two staff members grabbed my shoulders so I wouldn't run. My shoulders were very skinny, so it hurt a lot. I was scared of what I would have to go through. We went through the door and I was finally sheltered from the rain. In a way, I wasn't sheltered at all, though. It was the middle of the night and a long past time due to all the lights off. The orphanage should have been quiet. But I heard a noise. It was a strange noise. The noise of a shower. The noise of metal objects crashing into each other. Also the staff's yelling and screaming. A chill went down my spine. What could I possibly write down to fully describe this fear? A staff member knocked on the door of the storage room, and the door opened. The moment it did, an angry roar issued from inside. The sight led into my eyes. I couldn't possibly take in the bizarre scene before me. 2 staff members were hitting a mat with bamboo swords while yelling violently. It was a mat used in, the one you use when you do gymnastics. But why was it rolled up like that? The rolled up mat was tied with a string and it was standing up in the corner. The staff members kept hitting it. Usually words are said to a person, but why were they yelling at a rolled up mat? The way that they were hitting and yelling at it, it was as if they'd gone mad. But wait, I could see something else sticking out from the top of the rolled up mat. It was, let me see, whose shoes were those? All of a sudden I froze and I couldn't think anymore. One man stood in front of me. The man's pinky finger was wrapped up in bandages. My eyes moved upward from his pinky finger and met with his. The beast's eyes met with mine, peering with the intent to devour me. I squeezed out a voiceless scream. My voice didn't come out, so it was more like a goldfish opening and closing its mouth. The beast stuck his little finger in front of me and roared. I couldn't tell if it was a word or a meaningless shriek, but I was certain it was something abusive. I was scared and I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I knew that Dr. Takano would show up to save me, but that's why I had to live and submit myself to the fear. I'm sorry. The hand with the bandages grabbed my hair and dragged me along. All I could do was apologize and beg for forgiveness while hoping the beast had even a tiny bit of mercy in him. I was like a broken apologizing doll, a mad doll that kept muttering apologies until its key wound down. I was their toy, shedding tears, coughing blood, and apologizing in place of clicking gears. I could see the shower room while he dragged me along. The door was open and I heard wailing from the inside, and what I saw was very strange. There was a locker on the side of the shower. What an odd sight. A locker was taking a shower sideways. I never even imagined anything like it before. The locker was taking a cold shower where 2 staff members hit it with bamboo swords. That explained the metallic noise I heard before. The beast didn't want me to see that. He pulled my hair violently and twisted my neck, so I looked in the opposite direction. Then I realized he didn't do that to stop me from watching that shower. He did it to make me look at something else. I saw a window in a courtyard. Usually it was too dark to see anything, but the lights were on, and the courtyard was very bright. And I saw it inside of the hen house. I saw... What was that? And... that hair was Eriko's? But why was she... That was far too... I'm sorry! I don't want to die! I know Dr. Takano's coming to save me! I know he's coming! I was taken to the staff bathroom and it stunk of ammonia. I saw, which doesn't fit in a bathroom. Why was this in the bathroom, I thought? He's not planning to with that, is he? No way! No!
Nashi, this is your punishment for breaking the rules, okay? Everyone must follow the rules. If you don't, you get punished. Do you understand?
Oh no.
Okay. I'm just gonna tell you that in the manga, you get to see what happened and what Takano sees. Okay? In the manga, you get to see Eriko's eyes being eaten out by chickens. Yeah. And, some people say that's probably why Takano's so screwed up with and interested in all these torture stuff. Because, if you know anything about people who go through some shit, they can be very morbid. For example, me. That's why I read Higurashi and Umineko. I mean, that's not the reason why. I mean, I had... whatever. It's a long story. Anyway.
How long had I been crying? I don't even know how long I've been comforted like this. My grandfather's hand is on my cheek to comfort me. I'm holding his hand lovingly and pressing my cheek against it.
Are you okay?
Grandpa? My grandfather put his hand on my head. The warmth of his palms gradually calmed me down. Piles of documents were all around me. It was a mistake to sort through any data while lying on a fluffy carpet. I must have fallen asleep and had a terrible dream.
And so now we know that she regularly has things like this, okay? As in, Takano's traumatized. If you sleep facing down, the pressure on your chest makes it easier to have nightmares. It's getting quite late. Why don't you go to sleep, Miyoko?
I'm fine. I took a nap, so I'm not sleepy anymore. I'm almost done, so I'm gonna finish up, okay?
You have school tomorrow. You should go to sleep, otherwise you'll get scolded for yawning again.
I've been going to bed late recently. Because of that, I yawn a lot at school. My teacher must have written a note to my grandfather. I'm fine. I'll go to sleep as soon as I'm done. So, please let me finish, okay? Besides, you shouldn't mind me. Go back to your study and continue with your article. The day for him to present his findings is approaching. He's been working so hard devoting himself to his research. But there's unfortunately a limit to what an individual can do. He needs a collaborator in order to further his research. He has to explain that his investigation could be the key to solving the mysteries of human behavior and make people understand just how important his work is. But as the research is about a very complicated subject, so he couldn't seek assistance from just anyone. Someone will be able to help him one day. Believing that, my grandfather earnestly continued his research. I want to help him more. All I can do is sort through his data and tidy up his materials. I also assist him around the house so he can concentrate more on his research. He always tells me how helpful I am, but that isn't enough for me. I'll study hard, get into a good college, and learn many things so I can actually be of assistance to his research. I'm a mediocre student right now, and I don't particularly like school, but I will do it. I want to help my grandfather. If his heart were to fail and he couldn't continue his research, I wouldn't hesitate to cut open my chest and offer up my heart for him. If he needs lungs, I'll give him my lungs. If any of his organs fail, I'll give him mine. There's nothing strange about those feelings. They're perfectly normal ones. For if he had found me even a day later, I might not have been alive. Or even if I had lived, it would either be with or without my body intact, or with my mind lost to me. In other words, I'm alive because my grandfather came to save me. If he hadn't rushed to find me, I wouldn't be here, so I won't hesitate to give up my life for him. Moreover, I'd be happy to do that. Even though I want to be with him forever, human lives aren't immortal. Just like how my parents died, it happens, so suddenly, without any warning. I'll never heal from my parents' deaths, but now that I have my grandfather, I'm not sad. However, his existence isn't eternal either. He may disappear all of a sudden for any unexpected reason, just like my parents. That's why I wish to be a part of him. That way, no matter what happens, we'll be together forever. I don't want to be alone ever again. I want to be with my grandfather forever. I want to help him forever.
Okay, then be sure to go to sleep after you finish this, okay? Promise?
Yep, I promise! We pinky promised after that. We smiled at each other and my grandfather went back to his study. The dried up tears are making my cheeks itch. I head to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. I looked at my face in the mirror. None of my grandfather's features are recognizable on my face. Of course they aren't. We're not related. He must have family too, but I never heard about them. He doesn't want to seem to talk about that subject, so I don't ever ask him about it. I don't care if he has real grandchildren or not. Even if I'm not related to him, I'm a granddaughter of Hifumi Takano. I'm not just a granddaughter either. I want to be more than that. I don't want a parent and child relationship, nor a lover's relationship. Nothing like that. I want something more absolute that binds our souls. Something that not even a tragedy can destroy. I'm Takano Miyoko, Takano Hifumi's granddaughter. Maybe it should be Mio instead. That's what my grandfather calls me sometimes. I want to succeed Hifumi's spirit. Since his name counts from 1 to 3, I want us to share that 3 and be the 4th in his line. Today my name changes. I wrote that new name in the mirror. Takanomiyo. What a wonderful name for the new me.
Colonel, sir, good to see you again. Takano, come on, no more Colonel stuff. No, I was worried when I heard you were ill. You sure look great now.
My grandfather always told me he doesn't have any friends. He used to tell me that everyone died in the war, but that's not true. He has one very close friend. This is him, and he's an elderly man my grandfather calls Colonel Koizumi. I don't know exactly where they met, but every time they get together, all they talk about is the military and the war, so I guess that's where they met.
Look at you, Mio. How tall are you now?
We just had a physical checkup the other day, and I think I've grown 2 centimeters.
That's wonderful. Good girl. Make sure you eat well, play a lot, and grow big and healthy. I envy you, Takano, for having such a cute granddaughter.
Mr. Koizumi knows that my grandfather and I aren't related, but he always calls me his granddaughter. It makes me very happy, so I put a little more black tea in his cup. And after serving tea, I left with a bow. I wanted to stay and listen to them talk, but I guess my grandfather doesn't want me to hear the stories of the war, so he always makes me leave. I left before I was told to, but having to leave doesn't mean I need to go to a different room. I just headed to the other side of this huge living room instead. Although I'm not right by them, I can still sit on the sofa and listen to their conversation. And if they need something, I can come help them right away. I try to earn points that way to prove that I'm useful. I sat on the sofa away from them and started reading an encyclopedia. While doing that, I try to listen to their conversation.
That's great. The professor said they want to come over on Saturday the next week. Oh, really? Thank you very much, Koizumi. Don't mention it. This just means the report that you wrote was that interesting, Takano. They're showing a lot of interest. They even said it's possible that this research could receive the Nobel Prize. A Nobel Prize? That sounds wonderful.
My grandfather laughed. Since he laughed so cheerfully, something great must have happened. Mr. Koizumi must have shown the society the essay that my grandfather was about to announce and gauged their reactions. And supposedly they find it extremely interesting. That means they recognize the value of my grandfather's research, and that makes me happy too.
But what worries me is that you'll get infected with the syndrome yourself. Make sure you don't end up clawing out your own throat, okay? Well, maybe I'm already infected, but Hinamizawa syndrome is harmless unless you already live a normal life. It was a dangerous disease back when the villagers believed in Oyashiro and bound themselves with strict rules. But those have faded over time, and now people rarely show symptoms unless something major happens. After that many cases, a patient's emotional state has a lot to do with how the syndrome develops. As long as you live a normal life, there's nothing to worry about. So when one is under a lot of pressure, like during the war, the disease gets worse. And that's right. Well, there's nothing to worry about. The subjective symptom in the initial stages is a paranoia akin to that in depression. Once you notice it happening, you can teach yourself to relax emotionally and physically by using the My Breathing method, which you can also get at least 9 hours of sleep a night over a 1-week period. That's how you prevent it from worsening. In fact, all the Hinamizawa soldiers under my direction, not even one died mysteriously. As he talks, grandfather started demonstrating the Takano breathing method and a bizarre exercise technique. According to them, this technique relaxes the body and lets the blood and lymphatic fluid flow smoothly. As a result, you relax emotionally too. But the movements involved in the technique are so weird, I had to look away because my grandfather looked so silly. That was the one thing about his research that I felt bad about. Oh. Grandfather asked me to do this exercise too. I don't want to make him sad, so I do it when instructed. I'm glad to hear that. Hideo Noguchi died in the middle of his research, so please be careful, okay? However, Noguchi's great work is still acknowledged even after his death. As a researcher, I'm sure that was his long-term goal.
Grandfather tells me about Hideo Noguchi often. He was born as the son of a poor farmer, but he studied hard and became a doctor. However, he was mistreated because of his background, so he left Japan. He moved to the United States, and there he met many accomplishments as a researcher. He discovered a vaccine for yellow fever. Grandfather's background is somewhat similar to his, so he often said that all the researchers admired him the most. He admired most. Hideo Noguchi died in North Africa while he discovered a vaccine for yellow fever. He heard it wasn't effective on yellow fever in North Africa. He went there to research it and came down with the disease and died. A researcher losing his life for his research. Sometimes that's a test of the researcher's courage. In that sense, Grandfather was very brave to visit Hinamizawa himself to gather information. He says he himself may already be infected, although my grandfather estimates from the ancient test from the Hinamizawa syndrome was only a menace centuries ago, and now it's no different from the usual bacteria that share symbiosis with humans. Many people became ill with the disease during the war, but it was because they were in an extremely abnormal situation. In today's peaceful environment, it's almost impossible for a person to develop symptoms. He sounds very optimistic, but he's never brought me to him, the Hinamizawa, so maybe he isn't that optimistic. However, since I live with him, there's a possibility that I'm already infected as well, so I'm not worried at all. That's because my grandfather taught me as long as I maintain myself physically and emotionally, I won't develop any symptoms. I know all about the horrible terminal symptoms of Hinamizawa syndrome, but I'm not overly fearful of them. Grandfather's enjoying his conversation with Mr. Koizumi. That's understandable. Mr. Koizumi told him that people showed great interest in his report. They even wanted to come over on Sunday the week after the next to meet and talk to him directly. With the rapid advance of modern medicine and unexplored frontiers are slowly dwindling, was it possible that Hinamizawa syndrome my grandfather discovered might be a new continent in the field? It'll be decided in 2 weeks. It sounds like there'll be more than one person coming, and it sounds like they're all important people in the society. They're all rich and famous, and yet they aren't satisfied with just that. They all want to be involved with something that's worth an international reward. This is a chance to gain assistance and sponsorship at the same time. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll make sure to be there. Good luck! Thank you very much. I owe you everything. It's too early to say that. Let's wait until you find some sponsors. The time comes, let's have a toast with a treasured wine of yours. That was their last conversation. My grandfather kept his head bowed until Mr. Koizumi was gone. It sounded like he set up this great chance for my grandfather, so I bowed my head just like him.
Did you hear that? It's finally a chance for me. There are people who share interest in my report.
I know, I heard! Now you'll have people to fund you and people to help you with your research.
Well, that's not set in stone yet.
Although he didn't want to admit it, he had a good feeling about it. The research he conducted all alone was finally about to gain recognition. Sunday the week after the next?
Quite! I'll be busy. The first impression depends on my presentation. I have to rearrange my data. No, I should probably practice explaining these in front of people. Anyway, I have to make sure I don't forget anything.
Boy, it'll be a lot of work to rearrange your data. Your handwriting is bad, so maybe you should write bigger.
Anyway, I'll be busy. The next 2 weeks will go by fast.
You're right. I'll help you too. All the formalin jars have to be dusted. Also, we need to straighten the curve on our rolled-up documents. Do you think leaving them out laid under the rug overnight would fix it?
We have plenty of things to do. Mio, could you help me?
Of course! I'll skip school for it!
No, you can't miss school.
We laughed together and thrust our fists into the air and motive ourselves to work hard toward the week after the next. Since that day, my grandfather spent more time in his study. It's not easy to create a report that you're going to show to other people. Copy machines hadn't been invented back then, so everything had to be handwritten. He knows it somewhere, but he just can't remember where he put the data he needs. As for me, I have to make sure I have enough guest cups to serve tea, so I'm counting them. Do I have enough tea leaves? Maybe I should get something to go with the tea. My grandfather knows nothing about these things. There's a whole list of chores to do, and I need to clean the windows so the room will be bright. What else? The 2 weeks pass quickly while we busy ourselves getting things done. What a wonderful 2 weeks it is. I can finally feel that I'm actually doing something to help my grandfather with his research. I hope the day of the meeting will be a memorable one for my grandfather. I hope that day will be a beautiful and clear one. Just as I wish the day is beautiful. Evening. My grandfather had dressed formally and paced around his study nervously. I'm also in a beautiful dress. I've only worn it once before at my piano recital, but I'm not nervous like my grandfather. This silly nervousness actually relaxes me. Are they here yet? My grandfather looked out of the window. And then a black car stopped in front of the gate. Back then, a car was a luxury item. I don't think I had even one classmate whose family owned a car. It only makes sense that men coming out of the car look respectable. Grandfather and I ran out to welcome them.
Welcome, I'm Takano. Thank you for coming today.
May I take your jacket? I greeted them and filled the role we decided ahead of time. Though my being relaxed by my grandfather's silliness ended at that point. Both of my grandfather and I were stiff with anxiety as we greeted them, and now that the moment was here.
Nice to meet you, Doctor, and hello, young lady. Are you his granddaughter?
Yes, Mio.
Oops. Okay, I messed up. What a good girl. I'm here in place of Koizumi. Something came up and he can't make it today. He's very sorry. I see. I'm sorry to hear that. The person who set up everything isn't here.
My grandfather even had his treasured wine ready, just as they promised 2 weeks ago.
Everyone, let me introduce you. This is Dr. Hifumi Takano. Dr. Takano is a leading member of the Research Center for the Prevention of Epidemics in Manchuria during the war. He made many advances in developing synthetic food and synthetic alcohol as measures against malnutrition and rations shortages. Nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me.
The men are even older than my grandfather. They take off their hats one at a time to greet him. Their beards, expensive-looking canes, and glasses tell me they're very high up in society. Grandfather bows to each one of them.
Oops, sorry. Everyone, please come into the study. Please excuse the mess. Come in, come in. Mio, serve tea for everyone.
Yes. I wasn't nervous at all earlier, but now I think I'm the most nervous one. I'm not the one making the presentation. I'm not the one being evaluated, so it's ridiculous that I'm feeling so nervous. I don't know if I could use it as my excuse, but I was so nervous I knocked over the thermos I had to fill the brim with hot water and ruined the black tea I chosen specifically for this day. I apologized to my grandfather and started to boil the water again. I just needed enough for the guests, and by the time I had the cups of tea and cookies ready, grandfather's presentation was at its key part.
It pierces the blood or lymph vessels and spreads to the spinal cord, and from there it travels along from the cerebrospinal fluid to the brain. I confirmed many cases of the encephalitis, I don't know how to say it, after autopsies. Eosinophilic meningoencephalitis is known to be caused by roundworm, and we predicted its behavior to be extremely similar.
Grandfather said, walking between samples and formalin jars and pointing to several as he gave his explanation. There are over 100 formalin jars in there with the parts of brains in them. They were all very dusty, so I spent a few days cleaning them. I'm rather proud to see the sparkling jars all lined up like this.
However, roundworms include extremely wide range of symptoms. A headache, narcosis, derangement. None of those are characteristic symptoms of roundworms. On the other hand, symptoms of Hinamizawa syndrome are very specific to that disease. You're saying that one of them is to claw out one's own throat, yes? Exactly. Some soldiers witnessed it just before their fellows died. Such self-mutilation was never seen before any disease, and only occurs in Hinamizawa syndrome. Also, since that symptom was only seen with terminal stage patients, I believe that means an exodus of something that we before seen in several parasites. Parasites mature inside of an organism, reproduce, and leave the host and look for the next one. So what do you think about the fact that they were only seeing the soldier from Hinamizawa, even though there are other soldiers that touched their blood, which must have been full of parasitic eggs or larvae? Did you think there was a possibility of them getting infected? I suspected things like an incubation period, but since it was limited to people in Hinamizawa region, I believe something such as a unique local climate must play a role. I talk about that in the next part, but the ancient indigenous beliefs of Hinamizawa have... That can't be possible, Dr. Takano. I've never heard of parasites behaving socially. Yes, well, that is one of the revolutionary scaries of Hinamizawa syndrome.
The elderly gentlemen mumbled to each other while pointing at the data, and with that I finally realized things aren't going too well.
Especially with them rudely interrupting him. Dr. Takano, I've been reviewing your data while listening to your gracious presentation. First of all, it's simply impossible for parasites to control human minds.
Human thoughts are controlled by the brain, which is a work of art created by God. Furthermore, ideology is an extremely advanced aspect of human thought. It's an advanced capability bestowed only to humans on this planet. Yet you would say that parasites intervene in that? Please, that's absurd. I agree. Ideology can also be considered a manner of thought that prioritizes the whole over the individual. In other words, what's most important prerequisite condition for the society. There's no way that parasites would be gifted with that, when their only demand is to pass on their genes. In the field of biology, there was never once been a discovery of sociality or eusociality within the parasites. I have no idea how to say those, I'm sorry. But there are cases of parasites interfering with the host's behavior. You're misunderstanding one thing, Dr. Takano. The principle that drives parasites capable of controlling their host is always reproduction and propagation, and it's only that primitive concept. Even the example used before of a rat infected with Toxoplasma gondii losing its aversion to cats. The altered behavior is simply a means to let their host be eaten by a better host in order to change hosts. It's just like a grasshopper infected with horsehair worm drowning itself. Once a horsehair worm matures, it becomes aquatic. When that happens, it guides the grasshopper to water and drowns it, and then enters the environment it's adapted for. Exactly. That part of the aspect where one claws out their own throat and dies corresponds to that in the case of Hinamizawa syndrome. For example, guinea worms escape the body by having the host scratch the affected area. Indeed, the purpose of all these parasites is reproduction, for them to infect the brain, God's masterpiece. No, infecting the brain itself isn't that strange. But to say they infest it and influence human ideology is frankly delusional. In fact, that's a dangerous idea. I don't think that's strange that Hinamizawa, an isolated culture, developed its own unique faith. There's actually many examples of that all over Japan. So are you saying all of them are due to parasites? Or that they were all due to cultural reasons, except the one Hinamizawa, which is caused by parasites? How do you establish the distinction? Well, as I said in my autopsies, the Hinamizawa soldiers who died in the war, there is sufficient evidence to believe... Excuse me, Dr. Takano, I don't think you've gathered enough case studies to call it clinical data. Furthermore, as you said, it was during the war. No, I mean, as I explained in the next part, Hinamizawa syndrome develops when one experiences suspicion, nervousness, and stress, and becomes emotionally unbalanced. I think it's a unique approach to suspect some manner of commonality if there were several cases of unique and bizarre self-mutilation, such as clawing one's throat out. Yet that's all the more reason it's unreliable. Maybe it's just a coincidence that such rare cases happen under abnormal circumstances like the war. I believe you witnessed the convergence of coincidences and, trapped in a justiceless view, deluded yourself into finding a pattern. To prove otherwise, you need an enormous amount of clinical data on Hinamizawa syndrome patients, but ethically that's impossible to prove. The natives' act of recognizing it as a curse suggests it's more within the realm of the culture-bound syndromes. And you think that this is a delusional parasitic disease? I hate to say this, but I think you admire the beliefs of Hinamizawans a little too much, and as a result, you yourself have been taken in by their culture-bound reactive syndrome. Actually, that happens quite a bit with the people who research more unusual fields of study. We're trying to be careful ourselves. The more they talk, the paler my grandfather's face becomes. I was just stunned myself. We never heard of parasites like that. That's impossible. It was just a coincidence. There isn't enough data. The talk goes on every time grandfather says something, and they dismiss it like that. Before he knew it, my grandfather could only hold his silence before their criticisms. Well, no revolutionary discovery is accepted at first. Maybe this research of yours is just one of those things. Even if it's ridiculed at first, it may achieve recognition in later years. It happens all the time. I'm just an amateur. I'm just a private researcher who didn't graduate from an elite college. Nor do I belong to any academic clique. I don't have any connections with experts or other research centers. That's why this is all I can do. The Hinamizawa syndrome is real, or is it my delusion, just like you say it is? To find out, I need your help. Of course, if this was the discovery of the century, it would create a major uproar. After all, you're suggesting that human culture and ideology is all for the will of parasites, and our frontal lobe is a place for them to live? What an audacious theory! If the link between the existence of Hinamizawa syndrome and the disease carrier's beliefs in Oyashiro could be established, then it would be possible to explain all religions. No, all cultural divisions on Earth. What a magnificent and unique idea.
Dr. Takano, instead of showing people like us your essays in secret, you should publish a book about it for the general public.
Grandfather looks at the ground, his fist trembling a little. But their words were far too cruel. I don't know anything about academics, and I'm just a little girl. I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but Grandfather worked so hard by himself until today. But to prove his research and delve further into it, he needs sponsors. Yet those sponsors are casting him away, calling his research a delusion. That's outrageous. Like asking which came first, the chicken or the egg. Besides, if his research was at the same level those cheeky men want to see, he wouldn't need their help. But they're saying that they can't help him unless they see some results that are beyond the level of private research. In any field, doesn't research always start with just a little idea? If you can prove its existence beforehand, then what's the point of researching it to begin with? If a wild idea can't be the subject of research, how do we gain any knowledge at all? But never mind that. When Mr. Koizumi came 2 weeks ago, didn't he say that they were really interested in his research? What's going on? This is the complete opposite of what he said!
Yes, I think this is a very interesting research. The human brain still holds many secrets. Dr. Takano's idea is an extremely unique one. It seems too impossible to ignore, especially from a eugenics perspective. Humans are not God's children. We're simply animals who underwent the baptism of evolution. As such, according to Darwin, there may be differences in the evolution based on environment. In other words, humans can be either superior or inferior. As a nation, we must think about how to maintain good bloodlines and how we can leave good genes behind. If we do not raise that as a national policy and research toward it, then by the next century, mankind may fall to a fatal position on the hierarchy. Dr. Takano's research has the potential of encompassing more than just parasitic diseases. If the evil inferior humans we shouldn't let breed can actually be explained by a disease instead of genetics, then it becomes possible to correct their behavior through surgery. As a result, we can leave wonderful people for our future. From the eugenic point of view, Dr. Takano's research should get started immediately. It's possible this could be the greatest discovery since Monet's invention of lobotomy. If causality between infectious diseases and the individual nature could be established, this would be more than Nobel Prize worthy. Koizumi, thank you for giving us this chance. As a side note, I don't approve of eugenics, okay? Anyway. Takano is a single-minded and passionate man, but he's not good at dealing with people. He's been working on his research all by himself, but now that he's at the limit of what one person can do, he needs help. Please, everyone, listen to what Takano has to say. Oh, you don't even need to ask. We're the ones who should be thanking you for this opportunity. We're already willing to help him. In fact, the more urgent matter will be arranging jurisdictions within society. I'd like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to be involved in such a unique research project at this age. There was a knock on the door, and the sliding door opened, and the owner peeked in. Excuse me, there's someone asking for you. May I bring him in? Someone? Who could it be? The owner whispered into Koizumi's ears. His face turned pale all of a sudden. Please let him in. No, I'll come and greet him with you. As Koizumi stood up, 2 pairs of footsteps reached the door. I didn't expect you to be here, Koizumi. Long time no see. I have something I need to tell you today. Yes, if you need to tell me something, I'm all ears. Please go ahead. The old man known as Koizumi was not someone whose status could be taken lightly. Although he was retired, he was still powerful enough to wield great influence as a fixer. So from his meek attitude, it's easy to figure out what kind of person this man must be. The old man held onto his bodyguard's shoulder as he walked. He had an expensive-looking cane in his other hand. He couldn't even walk on his own because of his old age, but his intense commanding presence hadn't declined one bit. I'll get straight to the point. Your friend's research. You need to put a stop to that. Huh? What do you mean? Koizumi, you must take his knowledge of Hinamizawa syndrome to his grave. Nobody should touch it. If anybody looks into it, well, if you poke this bush, a snake will come out. A big fat snake, too. It pained me just to see you get swallowed up by it. That's why I'm here to give you some advice. Can your friends wait for a little? So how about it? Do you want to have some drinks with me in a different room? Yes, I'll come with you straight away. Koizumi realized he was being pressured. He didn't know which direction it was coming from, but clearly some authorities weren't comfortable with the research of Hinamizawa syndrome and were trying to stop him from supporting it. Koizumi, do you remember the Marco Polo Bridge incident? This is utter nonsense. We came here today expecting to hear a more objective side. Normally we wouldn't come all the way here for something like this, but since Koizumi asked us, we didn't have a choice. This is really a waste of time, but in a way, it was a good thing we came. be able to give you some good advice. You should take a bonsai instead of wasting your life on this. Bonsais are great. I agree, it's not healthy to just stare at formalin jars in the study. But it sure is a unique subject. If you want, I'll introduce you to the chief of a publishing company. The general public loves things like this, you know. They aren't even trying to hide their hostility. They're laughing at my grandfather, denouncing him, and saying things to denigrate not only his research, but his personality as well. They're simply trying to provoke him. Any response would just be giving them what they want. Even this very moment, grandfather tried to remain a noble researcher and a proud human being. He's no longer trembling. On the contrary, he apologized to them for taking up their time and told them he had no intention of keeping them any longer. We'll give this article back to you, though it'd be so much easier if we could actually call it an article. One of the elderly gentlemen tossed it back to him. Grandfather couldn't catch it in time. The article he worked so hard on fell on the floor, and the papers scattered all over the carpet. The elderly gentleman left the study without even apologizing for it. Everyone else followed suit. As they left, they trod all over my grandfather's article. It looked like grandfather's expression didn't change, but I could see it warping. I could see the wall of research grandfather bore crunching and warping sadly. I jumped. I grabbed onto the elderly gentleman's leg. I don't hate him. If I were to ask if I hate him or not, the answer would be yes, but that's not the point here. What I really can't stand is his foot stepping all over my grandfather's article. Don't step on it! Don't step on it! Grandfather worked so hard on it! Don't step on it! I just wanted to move the foot that's standing on his papers, but the foot doesn't move no matter how hard I push or pull, as if it's rooted to the floor. I felt someone grabbing me from behind, and it was my grandfather. Please excuse my granddaughter. Don't worry about this. We'll clean it up. Don't step on it! I'm telling you not to step on my grandma's article! My screams don't mean a thing to them. They completely ignored my screams. They continued to step on the papers and left the study. Only my grandfather and I remain there now. My grandfather's still grabbing the back of my collar. I don't have any words left to say, only cries. My grandfather's determined not to show any emotion. He doesn't even open his mouth, so I have to cry for him. And just then, my grandfather slapped me in the face. That startled me. I'm crying for him, so why did he slap me? And then I understand. Grandfather is the one who wants to cry, but he's enduring, so I shouldn't cry either. I wiped my eyes from my runny nose, and I silently turned my eyes to the papers on the carpet, just like my grandfather. Sorry, Mio. I don't understand why he's apologizing. I thought he was going to complain about their rudeness. If I had worked harder, this wouldn't have happened. Until today, you helped me so much. And it was all for nothing. Sorry about that. How courageous he is. Even after that disaster, he's still concerned about me. I shook my head and put my hands on the floor. I tried to gather up the papers, but then they began to fall. My tears are overflowing again, blurring the ink on the papers. These are all handwritten by grandfather. He was so happy that there was finally someone who understood his research. He was so happy. He spent all night writing these, but they stepped on them. They might as well have stepped on my grandfather's very soul. I didn't work hard enough. If I had done more, this wouldn't have happened. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll work even harder. I won't give up because of something like this. I don't know if he's saying that to me or himself. Don't worry. God is watching, and I have to believe that I'll gain recognition. That day will come. That's why I have to keep working harder. Grandfather says that all the time. But I know the truth. God only plays with people's fate. He doesn't save anyone out of goodwill. That's why he let this happen to grandfather. Even though he's worked so hard and so humbly until today. That's why he let such a horrible thing happen to me when I was still such an innocent little girl. Grandfather keeps repeating himself. But I know the truth. God exists. The existence that grandfather believes is real, but there's no mercy to be found in God. He delivers unreasonable fates and makes us call it a challenge. I can't tell my grandfather that, of course. I asked God once more, like I did on the day of the thunderstorm. Why? Why can't you give my grandfather's effort and hard work the recognition it deserves? Grandfather told me he'll gather up the papers, so I should put away the teacups.
I nodded silently and put the teacups that hadn't even been touched onto the serving cart. As I pushed it out of the study, Grandfather told me. He told me to close the door after I leave. I always close the door when I leave. He doesn't need to remind me. But that's what he wants, so without saying anything, I closed the door. Then I walked away from the study. I heard my grandfather sobbing. Tears filled my eyes once more. Sadness and disappointment. I almost feel angry with myself for not being able to do anything for him. And then I felt a cool breeze on my wet cheeks. The breeze was blowing in from a cracked open window. The curtain was flapping gently in that breeze. I heard the cry of the Higurashi. As I listened to them, I calmed down gradually. If I can ease Grandfather's pain by crying, I'll cry in his place. But that won't help. On the contrary, he started to cry because I did. I'm being useless here. I remember that day. I remember the reason I'm alive now. If he hadn't come to save me, I would have spent the last days of my life lying in the corner of the bathroom as a human-shaped piece of meat. Grandfather saved me. He gave me back my rights. The right to walk, the right to stand up, the right to wear clothes, the right to eat, the right to speak, and the right to think. In other words, the right to live as a human being. Grandfather took action right after he got the phone call from me. He found my house. He found out which orphanage I was sent to, after struggling through the sloppily filed records from the public office. And then he saved me. Of course he was working on his research then. He spent his precious research time on saving me. A perfect stranger. I vowed that if his heart failed, I'd rip out my heart and give it to him. But of course his heart is fine, so he doesn't need a heart. He needs something that's equally important. That's something that only I can give him in this whole world. I clenched my fists, and I held them so tightly that my nails left marks. Now I know what I'm supposed to do with this new life as Takanomiyo. I finally know. I know the reason why the new me was born. I know the purpose of Takanomiyo. To fulfill a wish and weave a desired future, the strength of a string is how strong your will is. A noble and strong wish will come true. I thought I knew of my grandfather's greatness, but I didn't actually know the half of it. For me to be able to really help him, I have to reach his level. All my lessons lead back to my grandfather. There wasn't a single subject I could ignore. Right now, studying hard is what I can do for him. I've been a teacher for a long time, but I've never seen such a hardworking student. You learn not only academically, but socially as well. You've made a great deal of friends. I have a goal in which I can only reach by studying hard. I also know how powerless an isolated genius is, and that's why I need to learn to socialize. That's not enough. I'm not even close to where I want to be. Entering college is only a step forward. What matters is what I learn there. I'm not even close. I'm not even close to being able to help my grandfather. I'm so proud of you. You can go to Tokyo or Okonomizu University or any college of your choice. Nothing will stop you. The most important thing for you is for the school that will teach you what you want to learn. A big decision that inhabits a tiny soul. If my life is heavier than the earth, then my decision is heavier than the earth. Do I have what I need to be able to truly understand Hinamizawa syndrome and help grandfather in his research? I don't need compromises or excuses. The heights I seek are lofty and precipitous. This isn't enough. Not even close. My classmates are such idiots, acting as if they're winners in life just because they entered this school. A college is simply a place to learn what I need to know. If this self-proclaimed best school isn't worth my time, I'm not interested. I didn't expect a talented woman like you to end up at a parasite research center. I'm sure that everyone wanted you, huh? I assumed you were interested in something bigger. I want to study and research parasites. I worked hard to earn the right to study here. Aren't I qualified to learn? Yes, of course! There's no reason why we would refuse someone who got the top score in the entrance exam. We welcome to the Parasite Research Center. People usually aren't interested in our field. There aren't too many researchers who study it. That's why there's still a lot of unknown elements compared to other fields. That's quite true. The study of parasites is a mysterious world. Or rather, it's an ignorant one. An ignorant world where the preconception that parasites can't possibly control humans pervades. And those ignorant people laughed at grandfather and stepped all over his research article. There's still many unsolved mysteries in the world of parasites, and I'm here to solve them.
I came here to help the people who want to solve them. A wish that's guaranteed to come true is not called a wish. That is fate, not a wish. I weave fate. Fate is an absolute power to control people in the world, not just an individual. Learning isn't enough for me. I have to be able to research with my grandfather, and so I don't ignore the means to gain the help my grandfather couldn't get. Grandfather's research isn't complete just when it's finished being written on a desk. I need the help of plenty of people to present it to the world, so his great work will be praised by many. Yes, that's correct. This is an association only top graduates in the Imperial University are allowed to join. Therefore, there's only 7 people per year that are allowed to join. It's a small group compared to the normal organization of alumni. However, its solidarity is unrivaled. Thank you for inviting me to such a gathering. I'm honored. I'd like to take the lowest seat. Oh, no, we can't let someone with such accomplishments and experience sit in the lowest seat. I'm sure that everyone will welcome you. The cabinet minister and some important government officials and company presidents and company advisors will be there. They'll all need you and they'll provide you the help they need. Koizumi belongs to this association, correct? He was my grandfather's best friend. What a coincidence. I see. I'm sure Koizumi will find out and he'll be glad that you're joining. An isolated genius is a useless one. People live in society. Society is made of connections between people. Nobody can ignore that. I'll do my best as an individual, but to gain the power that can't be achieved as a mere individual, I have to rely on my connections in society. It's all for one purpose. My only wish is Taka no Mio. Yes, I can't spare any effort. My absolute conviction will forge a guaranteed future. Nobody can interfere. Nobody can stop me. I won't allow the die to roll a 1. I won't admit the diligent efforts that can be erased by a mere train accident. I'm going to make the dice roll 6s. I won't entrust the die to God. I won't give in to luck. The only people who pray to God are people who don't want to work hard. I don't trust God. I'm going to create results myself. My strong will is going to create an absolute future that God can't possibly prevent. This is a different way to become a god than the one my grandfather taught me. This is the way to become a god while still alive. When I realized it, I truly became free. Free from the sadness of losing my parents and my miserable life after that. Free from my grandfather's tears when his article was stepped on. That's right. I'll be above God. I'll be an existence that God's caprices can't even touch. I'll make people recognize grandfather's research. That's the future I wish for. The future I promise will come to pass. People will fight over grandfather's article. People will respectfully read the same article that was once ridiculed and stepped on. Even if grandfather dies before that day comes, I won't cry over something like that. Because he already taught me. Even after being buried, one can be resurrected. I'm going to complete his great work, and the whole world will praise him. Grandfather will resurrect and become a god. He'll be eternal. That's an everlasting bond. A bond not even a train accident can break. A bond not even a die that rolls a 1 can disturb. Since the day of the train accident, my die has kept rolling 1s over and over. But I didn't give up. I kept working hard until today. I'll rise above the die. I'll decide what to roll on it. I'll decide my own fate. I'll do with what my unshakable willpower. God, I love the use of you, destructive. By the way, a lot of people call the song Dear You, but it's actually just you. Oh, that was so hard to read when I was about to cry. I tried. Anyway. When is the clinic open? Is there going to be air conditioning? I heard it'll open next month. I hope there'll be a young doctor there. I heard some old ladies talking amongst themselves when I was going up to the stairs of the shrine. The area clinic is already completed and it's waiting and ready for an opening day. The state-of-the-art equipment has been delivered, and the research is waiting to begin as well. Irie, too, is standing in by the top form, and he's almost as passionate as I am about Hinamizawa syndrome. The mountain dogs, a counterintelligence unit to support and protect our research, are already stationed at the dummy company somewhere near Okinomiya. They're getting in touch with various public institutions. Everything is going well. The only thing to worry about would be the rumors about the Hinamizawa Dam construction plans. There's a rumor that the Ministry of Construction is pushing through a dam project that will submerge all of Hinamizawa, but they're under pressure from several groups. None of my contacts have as much influence in the Ministry of Construction, so things aren't going well. Even if applying pressure doesn't work, there are other measures, so either way it will come to a deadlock. I'm not being optimistic, I just know that's how it'll end. I'll conduct research here in Hinamizawa. I'm going to accomplish that with my absolute will. That's why even if God rolls a 1 on the die and says that he's going to submerge Hinamizawa, I will not be afraid. I won't entrust my die to God. I'm the one who's going to pick up the die, and I'm going to roll a 6. I didn't come to the shrine to declare war on the god of this place. I came because I know that you can get a great view from up here. I walked to the shrine and headed to the spot I found last time I visited. It's the perfect spot for overlooking the entire village. The strong wind reminds me that I'm the only at the starting line, and that there will be a headwind before I reach my goal. I looked over the village without faltering in the wind. Grandfather approached the syndrome from a medical point of view, but he also approached it from a folkloric one as well. The strange belief system in this village is proof of the existence of Hinamizawa syndrome was already known even in ancient times, so it would be extremely useful to research their history too. My grandfather hadn't been doing research for hundreds of years, of course, but this place had been here for hundreds of years, and they'd been living with the Hinamizawa syndrome for that long. Therefore, the beliefs created in this place, and the legend itself can be considered the foremost researchers. It's simply stupid to call them old folk tales or nonsense. I've been researching them slowly, but they are indeed very interesting. No wonder Grandfather was intrigued by them. Hinamizawa syndrome has many fascinating sides to it. It's just like a kaleidoscope, showing infinite light with ever a slight change in angle. It's so much fun to trace Grandfather's research. Finding the same results as my grandfather reminds me that I am indeed following in his footsteps, which makes me very happy. This shrine is dedicated to Oyashiro, the guardian deity of the village. But this god the villagers worship is simply a delusion that was created by the parasites. When I solve their secret and announce it to the world, the god of this place will be no more. That's the moment I will take revenge on the one who put me through misery and tested my fate. That's it, isn't it? This isn't just about making my grandfather's dream come true. It's also for getting revenge for my miserable life. I went back to the front of the shrine. There's an offertory box there, and I attempted to throw in some coins. But normally you offer coins to ask for mercy. I don't entrust my fate to God, so I don't need to give an offering. I'm going to unmask him. But until then, Oyashiro is a god. Okay. In that case, I'll show respect for now. As a declaration of war, I pulled out a 10-yen coin from my pocket. The 10-yen coin I found in the telephone booth changed my life. If it hadn't been there, my life would have ended then. I'm grateful for at least that 10-yen coin. I'm not grateful to the god of this shrine, though. But I haven't forgiven you yet. I never expected anything from you, and I'm here because of my own hard work. Even if you keep playing tricks of fate, or keep rolling a 1 on the die, that won't bother me. With my strong will, I'm going to get what I want. My grandfather will be praised and become a god because of the research I'll do in his place. I'll defeat the god of this village and become an existence above even gods. Since when did I care about God, huh? Maybe because my grandfather often talked about him. Here, this is the 10-yen coin you gave me before. My debt's paid off now. You just keep clinging to your throne and tormenting people with your trials, while I fight my battles to knock you down from there. And so I chucked the 10-yen coin I once borrowed from God into the offertory box. Ugh. For a moment I couldn't understand what happened. The 10-yen coin was supposed to fall into the offering box, but how can I explain this? That's not what happened. I aimed correctly for certain. Who would miss an offertory box anyway? That's not it, because the 10-yen coin stopped in mid-air, as if it got stuck in the spiderweb. Then it bounced back to me and fell by my feet. It was as though the offertory box had refused the coin. Of course. An offertory box is to respect God, but what I did was challenge him. That means this is. I jumped, because I thought I was the only one here. Anyone would jump when finding there's someone else standing there unexpectedly. How long has she been there? It's like she came out of the shrine. A mysterious girl is standing on the other side of the offertory box. She's wearing a shrine maiden uniform, so she must be one of the caretakers here. That's what I thought too. But there's something else about her. She's not one of the shrine caretakers. She is the shrine itself. Because the girl is staring into my eyes. No, she's glaring. I smile back fearlessly. I think she heard my words of challenge to God. She's wearing that expression on her face because of that. The words came out naturally. You are the god of this place, aren't you? The girl didn't nod, but I took that as a yes. What a contradictory feeling. I'm rejecting the god of this land, denying its very existence. Yet I don't doubt that this girl is that god. The girl opened her mouth to speak.
A strong will reinforces fate.
That's right. That's what I say to myself often. I never said that to anyone or quoted it from anything, so under normal circumstances, I should be surprised to hear this girl say that. But this girl isn't human, so I'm not surprised. I replied to her. God throws the die of fate and has fun with people depending on what he gets. But people have willpower. The stronger the willpower, the less chance of being bound by the result of the die. You see, people can gain a power that's strong enough to fight fate by working to their limits.
Yes, I understand that very well. An unshakable conviction defeats the die of fate.
That's right. That is mankind's revenge against the god who toys with them by dice roll. The hymn of those who slow the god's interference and forge their own destiny. Know my divinity, and that I earned this day through effort after enduring all misfortune. Spiteful laughter flowed out of my mouth, but the girl's face displayed a strong will of her own. Her expression didn't even change a bit.
I understand very well. No matter how many times we repeat, our fate doesn't change. That was all because of your strong willpower.
Yes, that's right. A strong will reinforces fate. That fate so empowered isn't bothered by the results of a die. That means it's an absolute future.
You, a human, found that truth before us gods, who have been living for hundreds of years. I admit it. Your existence is close to that of a god.
I'm honored. The girl glared at me with her eyes half shut. No, it was more like she was proclaiming something to me, while displaying her own strong willpower.
I won't be defeated this time. We always thought we couldn't win against you. That was why I surrendered. I abandoned hope and crawled around in the wheel of life. But then I learned the power of belief can cause a miracle that forges your destiny.
Are you saying you'll cause a miracle using your strong will that will defeat the destiny woven by mine? That's logical enough. Besides, that's the law of the world. A strong will can make a desired future possible.
We won't be defeated by your will.
That's fine if you insist on being an old god. Try it and see if your willpower can defeat mine. God tests people, yet people aren't allowed to test God. So I'm going to test you here. See if your willpower can defeat mine. Come on! Go ahead and try it! That's clearly a declaration of war from me to God. This is the beginning of my revenge toward God, who put me through so much misery. And this girl, this God, is accepting my challenge directly.
I'm not as powerful as you are. I can't do as many things as you can. Even if my willpower is as strong as yours, you're still more powerful than I am.
That's right. I've gained an overwhelming power. You have absolutely no idea what I had to go through to gain it. You can't even touch me.
I know. I know how powerful you are. Compared to yours, the powers of my friends and I command is insignificant. But I can choose not to give up. I won't admit my loss. I won't give up until the day when your die rolls 1 and my die rolls 6. I'll prove the strength of my willpower, not by surrendering to you for eternity. Stacking up stones on the riverbed will allow us to cross the river and appear before you as equal. And when this long battle of fate will come to an end.
Fine, come on then. We'll see who has the stronger will. Whoever has the stronger conviction will create the future. The future desired by the stronger conviction will come to pass. I will hold my ground. In my future, my grandfather's great work is praised, and he becomes a god, and I take revenge on God for testing me by making me go through such misery. stupid little god. I'll show you. I'll drag you down from your pedestal. Chapter 8. MatsuriBayashi. I think I messed up. I don't know. It's hard because I wanted to really cry and I had to suppress everything so I could keep reading. Alright. Alright. We're done here. That was hard. Oh, right. I have to close the stream. That was hard. I have to go.